Hello, welcome to episode 7. If you have been following all along, you already know us, Lindsay and Kathy here, and we are joined again by Steve Stasiak, our local RPR. Thank you for being here, Steve.
Thank you.
And we are going to talk about vertical applications, including fireplaces today.
That's right. And Steve, you know as well as we do how frequently cord slabs are specified in vertical applications. So let's just dive right in with the most common question. Can this even be done with Cambria?
Yeah, absolutely. Use of Cambria's 6mm, 1cm, and 2cm material is recommended for that.
Could it also be done with 3cm material?
We don't recommend it just simply because of the weight of the 3cm material.
Now that we know this can be done with 6mm, 1cm, and 2cm, what are the fundamentals for vertical applications?
Yeah, certainly. The Cambria material does need to be fully secured to the substrate. And then we're going to ask that a full support be used running along the bottom length of the material.
What would qualify as full bottom support?
Yep, I know we're not structural engineers at all, but what we will recommend is either placing that bottom length of the slab directly on the floor, a piece of 90-degree angle iron, or securing a substrate directly to the wall studs.
Could Cambria also be cork miter?
Yep, it can, but that's going to be very dependent on the tooling and skill set of the fabricator.
So we have the material ready to go. How do you adhere Cambria to the backer board?
Yep, we're going to require some type of bonding agent and then additional support against the material to hold it in place while that bonding agent dries for roughly 24 hours.
Okay. Talk to us about the joints.
Sure, so the joints are going to either be butt joints or an ease joint, and we're going to recommend Cambria's 2-part epoxy mix to adhere those joints together.
Are there any vertical height limits?
No vertical height limits. Certainly want to make sure the material is secured and supported correctly, and then make sure that the structure or walls that it is adhered to is going to be able to support the weight of the material.
Could designers specify Cambria for ceiling applications?
Absolutely. Again, we're going to only recommend our 6mm and 1cm for those applications.
All great general information. Now let's switch gears. Lindsay has some questions about fireplace applications.
Yes, I absolutely do. And you know, fireplaces are a constant conversation with Cambria, right? And we've definitely had successful installations with fireplaces when it's installed per Cambria's guidelines and techniques, as well as the fireplace manufacturer's instructions, right? So Steve, what are the basic requirements?
Yeah, first, what we're going to need is that Cambria material to be a minimum of 1/8 inch recessed back from the opening, the front face of the fireplace. Secondly, we're going to ask that the material not be in contact with the firebox at any point. And third, depending on the specifications of the fireplace unit, and quite honestly, in most cases, vertical soft seams will be necessary in all 4 corners of the fireplace.
Okay, and so it really sounds like the basic requirements are all in an effort to keep the transfer of heat from that fireplace into the Cambria material.
Exactly.
Okay, so I want to dive a little bit further then into that need for the soft seams. Tell us about that.
Sure, those soft seams really only need to be a minimum of 1/16 of an inch wide, and then filled with a color matching silicone or a flexible adhesive that is rated for high heat applications.
Okay, and that makes great sense, right? So switch gears a little bit. Let's talk a little bit more about the actual installation of the Cambria. What are some specifics with that?
Sure, the Cambria material is going to need to be bonded to a non-combustible backer. And then we need to be sure that there are no air gaps between the backside of that Cambria material and the front-facing side of that non-combustible material. Typically, that non-combustible material is cement board.
Got it, and that's pretty common, obviously. Yep. So what about using Cambria then as like the mantle or the hearth?
Yeah, we're going to ask that you look at the guidelines and installation requirements for the fireplace. The Cambria mantle in specifics is going to need to be treated as though it's a combustible material, so you're gonna have to look at those height guidelines in the combustible material.
Okay, and that's gonna be based then on the fireplace manufacturer specifications?
Exactly.
Okay. So let's say then that a designer is doing kind of more of a basic fireplace with the surround being Cambria, the mantle is another material. What about some specifics there?
Yeah, I think one of the key things to remember there is that keystone piece of Cambria is going to be a minimum of 10 inches tall.
Okay. So lastly, of course, I would be remiss if we didn't talk about Cambria in conjunction with fireplaces that get extra hot. So what do we do about those situations?
Yeah, if you're not sure if the Cambria can be used in those applications, what we're gonna ask is that you reach out to your reps to have that conversation, and we'll certainly dive into those manufacturing guidelines to see if Cambria can work in those applications.
Perfect. Okay, so that sounds great. And that's gonna wrap it up for us today. And Steve, again, thank you so much for being with us on yet another occasion. He will be back with us again next week.
And if any of you missed last week's episode on slab cement and book matching, be sure to check it out. Meanwhile, send us your answer to the trivia question, and we'll see you next week.